Good evening, welcome to this live video feed. Hoping everybody is exceptionally well on this beautiful evening, and of course wherever you may be in the world. It could be the morning for you, it could be the afternoon. Welcome to this video. So this evening is a topic that is very much dear to my heart. In fact, I probably should really state that every topic that I speak to is something of meaning to me, of course, and something of relevance and resonance to me. And just of note, wonderful people, as you're coming on board, as you're joining this live feed, please let us know that you're here. Yeah, please make your presence known. Place a number 1 in the comment box. Let me know how you're feeling, because as always, how we feel really determines to a great extent how receptive we are to the conversation, to the information being presented, and so forth. So speaking to loss today, speaking to how do we deal with loss, or the perception of loss? How do we deal with the pain of loss? Hello everyone, as you're coming on board. So I'm just a little bit on what's going on. Actually, I've just arrived in Melbourne. Good morning, good evening. Oh, that's wonderful, Emma. Great. Yeah. So, hey, Charmaine, how are you? Yeah, there's definitely a lot of movement going on. So I've just arrived in Melbourne, and I'll actually be presenting a workshop next week, next Wednesday, the 6th, with the beautiful Charmaine Adam, who's jumped on to this live feed. So very grateful for that, of course. But I've just arrived in Melbourne a couple of hours ago. A good friend of mine picked me up from the airport, and haven't seen him for about a year, but we've been close for a few years. And it was lovely spending some time with him, and we were conversing a little bit about this as well. But not as deep as we are going to go this evening. So I've just arrived at my place here. It's an Airbnb place, nice place in near the city. Yeah, so pretty comfortable. I'm feeling pretty blessed right now. So, loss. How do we effectively maintain a sense of wellness and a sense of well-being and a sense of self-love whilst we are experiencing loss, whilst we are experiencing pain, again, or the perception of loss? It's really interesting to understand that what we perceive to be true generally is true for us. So what we perceive to be real generally becomes our reality. And perceptions are, again, a deeply interesting concept. And our perceptions shape our reality, and our perceptions really form the way we choose to move through the world. Now, when I say perception of, it doesn't mean that what you're feeling or what you could be experiencing is false or not real. In fact, it's very, very real. And if you're feeling it and you're experiencing it, it's deeply, profoundly real for you. And the first thing that Oksana, good evening, thank you. Carol, good evening. The first thing that needs to really be said here, that really needs to be extrapolated upon, is that we need to be allowed to feel our feelings. We need to grant ourselves time and space to feel the fullness of whatever it is that we need to feel as we are moving through loss or sadness or pain. Hi Maria, how are you? It is so deeply important that we allow ourselves the space to feel. So I did a fairly long post yesterday on loss and loss in love, or loss of love, and also a post this morning on we must let it be before we can let go. Because we are often told about letting go. What does that actually mean? I'll just let that go. Be non-attached or be detached. And there's a difference between being non-attached and being detached as well. But we're told to just let shit go. Let life go. Let that pain go. Let that phase of your life go. And it's easily said, right? But it's not necessarily easily done. And this becomes a problem for us, yeah? Oh, thank you, Emma, yeah. Yeah, you know what I might do, actually? I might actually read that post. I'm going to do that. Give me a moment. I'm going to read the post on letting go and letting be before we let go. But I'm going to read the power of loss in love. And for those of you that didn't see that post, potentially I feel there's deep value in this post, and the reason being is because it really speaks to something deeply truthful, deeply resonant within the human sphere. Yeah. So let's go ahead. I'm going to read that. I'm going to read that to you now. And if you're just coming on, just pop a number 1 in the comment box so I know that you're here. And if you're new to these live feeds, place the word new, of course, in a live feed so the beautiful tribe can welcome you. Yeah. So the power of loss in love. Okay. Never, you're welcome, brother. How are you? Red and green it goes, yeah? As you know, welcome. So how do we explain, Never, you're not new, brother, but it's lovely to have you here. Miv, welcome. Tribe, can we please welcome Miv here? Thank you. Craig, welcome, brother. It's good to have you on. It's all right, Emma. We're gonna get through this, yeah, together. This is one of the key components and the key principles of actually dealing and moving through and moving with loss. Yeah, Miv, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Corey, how are you, brother? Good evening. Raul, welcome. Thank you for being here. Can we please welcome Miv? Miv is new to the group, and so is Nevia as well. Yeah, apparently he is. I think he's been here a couple of times before. But the power of loss in love. How do we explain something so fragile? So deep and so profound when we lose loved ones, when we lose intimacy, ideals, beliefs, ideologies, familiarity, and all else in between. I wish to focus on relational loss here, though. The loss of transition of an intimate partnership. How do we deal with the anxiety, stress, and immense sadness that accompanies the loss of deep love in particular? Will, how are you, my friend? We may justify life in so many ways. We know in a layered wisdom that life brings to us precisely what we need as we need it. We know intrinsically that loss and gain are perceptions. Nothing is ever truly lost, simply transmuted into another form. But the emotional overwhelm that is felt with disconnecting from a loved one is at times overpowering. Does the embracing of this ethos truly remove the sadness that accompanies loss when we wish not to lose? When parts of us know and feel differently, how do we reconcile that often agonizing pain? So if you're just joining us, I'm just reading something that I put up on social media yesterday that is very relevant and pertinent and poignant to today's topic. Loss of love in life can bring us to a place of intensified sadness. However, it is this sadness that we learn to live and love wholly. There are times when sadness overwhelms us. We feel lost, disconnected, out of place within our emotional bodies. These are reference points and landmarks on our map of life that allow us to experience the fullness and magnificence of life. In the darkest chasms of our being, we are able to find solitude, realization, and authentic truth. Loss is difficult. What is important to understand here is that difficulty and challenge is not a bad thing. When we lose love, we are not actually losing, we are simply transcending or shifting rather from one state of being into another. The perception of loss is felt as we once experienced intensity, consistency, regularity, familiarity, exposure, and truthful exchange in experience, and then one day, gone. No longer we can easily perceive this as loss, and this feels immensely sad. And if you have any questions whilst I'm reading this out, please begin to type them or prepare them with reference to what I'm reading. Then I'm obviously going to go into today's live feed. This is part of today's live feed anyway, yeah? We are additive creatures. We often do not cope too well when we are not gaining. When we are perceived to be gaining, we are content, full, happy, at peace. When we perceive any form of loss in our lives, it can disorientate us. Cognitive and emotional reframing allows us to observe life from a place of abundance and a newly enlightened perspective. This process alters our neuronal mapping, responsible for interacting with our emotional and social brain, which then allows us to experience reprieve from often tormenting sadness. The process further transmutes situations that are painful into situations that are useful. Beyond this, however, we must learn to simply feel our feelings, be with our pain of perceived separation. Know that we are not totally and completely defined by our externalized experiences and relationships. I say perceived because all events that occur to us are neutral. How we interact with these events and the meaning we place upon them define our state of well-being and responses to life. But again, beyond this, what if we simply immerse ourselves into the pain, into the fear associated with the disconnect of relational separation and despair? We miss what is missing from our lives, what we love, what we are accustomed to, familiar with, endearing towards, value, care for, are sincere with, in alignment with, and adore. I'm not sure if this feeling ever completely dissipates, and I'm not. Whilst all states are transient and life is impermanent, the pain simply shifts and moves and presents itself in different ways. We often become caught in polarized memories of these very potent and intense experiences, and we can quickly forget the contrast that caused us pain, whilst once immersed in love. But again, let's move beyond neurology and psychology just for a moment. Let's get into the deep feelings of what loss is. And today's live feed is about that. It's not about providing solutions. It's not about providing tools. It is to some extent, yes, but it's more than that. It's a reaffirmation of needing to be present with whatever it is that we are experiencing. I know with my own experiences, it does not take me long to feel into a memory, and my body, brain, mind, heart integration are immediately there. I feel the fullness of it, and I have a cognitive knowing that that specific experience is no more. I miss that experience. I miss the interchange of deep love shared and expressed in that moment. It saddens me to hear stories of love that have been separated based on forced circumstances. Tears stream down my face as love is disconnected yet once again. I have been blessed in my life to be surrounded by love. I choose love wherever and whenever I can, as it is deeply important to my growth. I miss certain people in my life that have added value to my being in so many ways. I miss my greatest love outside that of my own inner being, and there is still profound sadness that dwells deep within me. A sadness that pulls at my heart, a sadness that knows at a soulful level that there is something not quite in alignment with the separation that has transpired. But a simultaneous and deep intrinsic knowing that all is precisely where it must be does reside. There is great wonder found in this enveloping space of being. I have ceased trying to understand. That exercise is fruitless and deters from feeling authentically. However, what is important is the beauty I perceive every moment I connect to that specific love shared, and rather than sadness overcoming me, I cry tears of joy to have been blessed, to have experienced such profound depth, and to have learned so much, grown so deeply, and known from the moment I was graced that growth and love was inevitable. What we do, who we are, what we wish to be, it all must be for ourselves primarily. When we feel our feelings, we greater connect and relate to others, and of course also be of service to others and their own path. Yes, tears of sadness are still shed, but as each intended moment passes, we grow, we become wiser, insight is cultivated, foresight is developed, and connection is created. It is through pain itself that we are able to learn to trust, to surrender and to breathe through the fear, the loss and the overwhelm. I love you. I'm here. I am there. I am purposeful. I am me. I am growing. I am ever present. And that was Rachel, how are you? That is something that I wrote yesterday. And it speaks deeply to the human condition with respect to how we move through life. with respect to how we treat ourselves and we treat others. And if you can resonate with anything that I've just read, then just pop a number 2 in the comment box. And also let me know that there is something that you resonate with, and if you have any questions on that, or any comments on that, any thoughts, any personal feelings, personal experiences that perhaps have served you in your own journey, you choose to share them here as well. So how do we maintain a sense of self whilst we are moving through pain and disconnect and difficulty and pain and pain and pain and pain and suffering and sadness? Well, the first step is to connect to self. The first step is I can't stress the importance of being with the present moment, being with what it is you're feeling, and being with your body, being with your physicality, connecting to your physicality, connecting to the way your body moves, connecting to feeling your body and what your body is experiencing in that very moment. There is something divine. You see, we don't wish to transcend the physical body. We wish to use the physical body as a gift that has been bestowed upon us to learn to relate to ourselves with greater efficacy, with greater strength and greater clarity, with greater openness and a greater understanding and connection to self. That is the power of the body. And that is the way of non-dual tantra in its purest form, when we move deep into the philosophy and the ethos of it. Beyond that, when we are able to be with what we are feeling, yes, Charmaine, complete embodiment, absolutely. Complete, non-complete embodiment. When we are able to be with the fullness of who we are in that present moment, we begin to feel ourselves. We cease to fracture and fragment ourselves, and rather we move into states of wholeness. We move into states of fullness, and a deep connection to self occurs. And I like that. I like that because we're learning about who we are, and in that learning, in that awareness piece, in that connection piece, we're growing. And it's in growth that we expand, and it's in expansion that we realize our greatest truths, our greatest wisdom. Unification, absolutely, Charmaine. Yeah. So super exciting for all you Melbourne peeps that are here. Charmaine and I are running a course, a workshop on conscious relating and conscious relationships Wednesday at Second Story Studios in Collingwood, in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Wednesday the 6th. So if you're around, check that out. I'll put some links in the title. I'll edit at the end, yeah? So that's pretty cool. And we'll be speaking to this. We'll be speaking to, learning to keep each other and ourselves safe. So we must nurture ourselves when we are feeling that life is at a deficit. We must learn to, and it's not even learning, it's an adaptation, yeah? It's a yearning. That's awesome, Natalie, yeah. Make it if you can, yeah? It's a yearning to be with self and to be connected fully to whatever it is that we are experiencing in that very moment. Because it's in that moment that we are able to grasp the wisdom of what we require in order to grow. So I speak to growth a lot. I speak to expansion a lot. And what does that actually mean? It means evolving ourselves, taking ourselves from potentially a limited place of being or a limited form of expression or sets of expressions into, hey, thanks Cherise, appreciate it, into a state of being that is more expansive, more inclusive, includes a greater understanding of reality and of self, We are able to do more with what we have. And eventually we're moving, not to get too esoteric or complex here, but we're moving towards non-polarized, non-dual states of being. And it's somewhat easy to speak to, and it's really complex as well. And for me, it's been a lifelong journey, just understanding, connecting to, feeling, embodying these states. And I'm sure it will continue to be a lifelong journey. So to articulate it in perfection, I don't feel I have that capacity just yet, but we're on a path of growth and learning, yeah? And that's what it's about. That's all we need to do, is just grow and learn. Yeah, grow and learn together. We're here for a reason. We're all connected for a reason, yeah? We are relational social beings. So when we're speaking to maintaining a sense of wellness and connectedness and maintaining psychological and emotional integrity in our bodies and in our minds, in our hearts, in our mind-heart connection, when we are facing loss, it's a challenging thing to do. I'd love to ask you, how many of you have experienced loss of a loved one? Even loss of identity, loss of an ideal or an idea or a belief system, where you've looked at a belief system or you've looked at an idea or a model of reality that was yours, and you said to yourself, this no longer serves me. And it's tough. Like, it's really challenging to move through that, to move through loss, to move through pain, because we identify with our belief systems. We identify with our models of reality. The ego thrives on familiarity and does not like what is different or abstract or not the norm. It's unsafe. So we move in turmoil when that occurs. But how many of you out there have lost loved ones, whether it be through a physical passing or death, or the loss of an intimate, deep relationship? And how have you dealt with that? You know, we're told sometimes, oh, just spend time with your friends, make yourself busy yourself. Immerse yourself into work, immerse yourself in a hobby, and just do a lot. A very, very go energy, very do energy, very masculine energy, so to speak. Because we're as human beings, we're made up of contrast. Be and do, go and flow, masculine, feminine, yeah? And when we're in turmoil, we busy ourselves, we busy our being, our mind, our bodies. Yeah, that's right, Corey. We're told to harden up. Especially men. Men are told to harden up. If a man is soft, he's not a man. He becomes emasculated. He's weak if he expresses himself. If you overexpress, you're weak. If you're just being with where you're at, it's a weakness. This is a problem. This is a problem for the way we interact with each other. It's a problem with the way we interact with our own being. We do not allow ourselves time and space to recover. Time and space to understand and connect to ourselves. Time and space to actually feel the feelings, understand the feelings, be with the feelings. Interesting. And we lose ourselves. We fragment and fracture ourselves in this space because we don't allow, we push away what is an integral part of us, and therefore we move away from wholeness. And wholeness is a move towards unified consciousness, and unified consciousness is everything that there is. See, Rachel, that's really open and beautiful of you to share that. You haven't lost your dad through death, but you haven't spoken for many years. And it's not about any one of us or me or anyone here psychoanalyzing you in any capacity, but just to say, and I don't know the details of your circumstances, and I would never assume to know those details, but if it is at all possible for you to open your heart to your father, and it doesn't actually necessarily mean you physically speaking to him, and you've mentioned it for a reason. There's a reason why you've mentioned it, because if it was a mute point, you wouldn't have mentioned it. And it's not necessarily even, when I say open your heart, you don't have to reach out to him or physically communicate with him. It could be an internal practice. but to be with those feelings, yeah? Yeah, Corey, that's epic, man. That's epic, brother. Thank you for sharing that, Corey. That's beautiful. Corey says, I went against the grain of what the world was telling me to do when I was in deep pain. Through suffering, I really found out what my belief systems were and rebuilt my whole being, the way I love, connect with friends, and move through the world with a sense of purpose. It's really beautiful, Corey. We were Corey number 3 for that, please. And that's called facing your shadow. That's called facing your demons. That's called facing the darkness, your darkness within. That's called facing your pain points. It's called embracing the fullness of who you are. Because everything that we are in life, everything that we experience, it is us. It makes us who we are. And when we negate aspects of self, we are negating our possibility for growth. And that's beautifully said, Emma, for Rachel. Absolutely, send him love. And that's what I'm talking about, our internal practice. And that's what I wanted to mention here, is what I wanted to speak to a little bit today, is very much this internal practice. This internal practice of self. And how do we maintain that emotional integrity? Well, first we need to be. Hey Jackie, how are you? First we need to be with ourselves, yeah? We need to fully connect to self. And when we do that, it unlocks our ability to see beyond superficiality. I want to read something else to you that I wrote this morning. And it's around letting go. And it's imperative we are able to let go at some point. But in order to let go, we must let be. And letting be means connecting fully to everything that we're experiencing in the present moment. So I want to read this to you. Letting go, no. At least not initially. Inspired by a conversation with a dear friend and a beautiful soul, we are often told in life to let stuff go. But what does this actually mean? How do we just move on from a state of deep connection to a state of severing and disconnection? In order to be whole, our most universally natural state of being, we must embrace all that we feel, experience, express, share, think, and are. It is in this embodying and acceptance, this surrendering and witnessing, that we are able to merge pain, fear, truth, and wisdom into all that we actually are. You needn't let anything go, and the reality is until you remain fully where you are in the present moment, you will only pretend to be non-attached. Judgment of self and others only clouds and distorts our present moment and authentic expressions of truth. Passivity is the root of all action. In other words, being with comes before doing. Action is a doing energy, is born from some form of stillness. When we choose to be with what we are experiencing, we are able to shift it if and when necessary. But the goal should not be to shift anything at all, but rather to just be. Feel fully. Own what it is you are conscious of in that present now moment. In this ownership, deep insight into self and life transpires. It is profoundly inspiring, and it opens our hearts and minds to new ways of being, expressing and connecting with ourselves and our loved ones. Our hearts electromagnetically interact with the world at a different vibration as we are able to see the world completely different. So it is in that space of acceptance and openness that we are actually able to move through and beyond. Yeah? It is profoundly inspiring, and it can often be deeply challenging to accept and surrender to feelings of pain, fear, the unknown, the mystery, and the doubt that at times riddle our lives. In my own personal experience, I've discovered that in the being with deep revelation occurs, and inner peace is cultivated. No, my longing or love has not actually waned as yet, but the manner in which I relate to these deep states of being has transmuted. I have cultivated wisdom, resilience, foresight, calmness, deeper love, and immense forgiveness. It is in this space that we realise we needn't let anything go, for what is part of us belongs to and for us. It shapes and forms our beliefs and our posturings, our behaviours and our life circumstances. The paradox is, once we soften into this profound surrendering, we are able to actually let go effortlessly. The way with and through is truly the only way. Any other statement of self is predicated upon fear and doubt. False and non-existent postures of avoidance. But we all walk our own path. Empathy, compassion, patience, self-love. The sincere and loving practice of these, amongst many other virtues, are what liberate our being from attached, immature, unaware pain. Be with your stuff, perceive it as beautiful, for it is an integral part of you, your journey and your teachings. Now, what this ultimately speaks to is the way we choose to interact with ourselves. You pop a number 4 in the comment box if you can resonate with what I've just read, please, beautiful people. But what that speaks to is a reframe. And it's a cognitive and emotional reframe with respect to how we view the world, with respect to how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about the situations that we actually experience. That's what it means. That's the reframe. We're able to observe these scenarios, these situations, these circumstances of pain, of separation, of disconnection, of suffering. We're able to observe them and say, I feel the pain. I acknowledge the pain. I own the pain. It hurts. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I really don't. Right now, I can only take one breath at a time, one moment at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. And if you can cultivate the courage to be that person, and that deeply, deeply changes and transmutes the way you choose to move through life. And that cognitive reframe, that neuronal process, that psycho-emotional process, allows us to view the situation and say to ourselves, wow, there's actually some value here. There's some growth here, there's some benefit here, there's something I can gain from this. I feel blessed. And in that blessing, in that gratitude, we grow. And we realise differently. We look at life, we observe life differently. We feel life differently. And maintaining emotional integrity, it's a matter of balance. It's a matter of inner strength. That's beautiful, Tia. That's really beautiful. Just having a look at some of these comments here. Just looking at some of the dialogue between Rachel and Emma. Being deeply true to oneself is really important, and it can be difficult to discern between an unconscious patterning and a deep intuition. One comes from a different level of consciousness, and the other, they both come from a similar place of consciousness, but one deeper than the other. A profound intuition comes from the most profound level of consciousness. There's 5 levels of consciousness, according to a particular discipline that I follow. And it becomes deeply challenging to discern at times which direction we need to move in. But when we allow ourselves to feel, albeit deeply painful, we open ourselves up to possibility. We open ourselves up to new ways of being. That's empowering for us, and it's deeply empowering for others as well. And when we are able to then relate to ourselves at that vibration, at that level, we're able to relate to ourselves in such a way that allows us to feel the fullness of what we are experiencing, we are able to relate to others with greater efficacy. We are able to relate to others with greater strength and clarity. In conscious relating and in conscious relationships, relationships that are aware, both people, both individuals must feel everything that they are experiencing and not choose to ignore the wonder that they are. Not choose to fragment or break, not choose to disconnect, but rather choose to be with what is being experienced. And it can be one of the most difficult postures to maintain and actions to take, with respect to being completely honest with how we are feeling and what we are experiencing, what we are thinking, what we are moving through. It can be one of the most challenging things to do in life. But when we remain true to ourselves, we remain authentic to our values and what is most important to us, we really begin to grow from a different vantage point, a vantage point of empowerment. And it becomes a beautiful life lesson. It becomes an axis for growth for all people involved. You know, so often in life we engage in relationships, and sometimes we engage in relationships from a polarized perspective. We only choose to see the good and the wonder in people. And I really believe what we need to begin to focus on is the unconscious drivers of what brings us close to people, because that's where the depth and the substance is. But again, just allowing to be with the neurochemical rush, the level 1 or the stage 1 phase of being in love and forming deep love. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a beautiful place to be. But to have an awareness, to have a deep awareness that stage wanes. And when that stage wanes, the unconscious components of that dynamic begin to play out. And that's where the growth is, but that's also where the pain and the suffering is, and the challenge is as well. But that's also where the beauty and the wonder is, and that's where it rests and resides. And we lose aspects of ourselves, we lose parts of ourselves sometimes. And sometimes we can lose those that we love because we are unable to deal with the pain. And the pain hurts. And the fears that it brings up hurt. And they're overwhelming. And they take over our bodies. And our bodies become paralyzed and numb. And we begin to shut down. And as we shut down, we disconnect. We become deeply fearful, deeply distant in our behaviors and our interactions, in the way we choose to relate. And in that distance, we revert back to survival tactics, to behavior that is primal and unconscious, and that only is concerned with psycho-emotional, physical survival. And in that process, we hurt ourselves and we hurt others. And sometimes in that hurting, it's very difficult to come back from that unless we take a profound turn of consciousness. And when I say come back from that, I don't just mean the loss of the relationship. I mean the loss of one's authentic self. But profound and beautiful news is that we can come back from it. And we can connect fully to ourselves. We can learn to love ourselves with all that we are. And we can cultivate patience. And we may have a enveloped capacity to be fully with what we are feeling. The pain, the anger, the frustration, the fears that are arising, the triggers. Because the other is simply a reflection of us, of the inner chasms of our being that we cannot shine a light upon because we are too immersed and entrenched in ourselves. So our intimate relationships, they shine a light on those dark aspects of self that we can't quite see. And Penelope, you're right, in one way, shape or form, you can return from that darkness. And in fact, once you become one with the darkness and familiarize yourself with the darkness, and become acquainted with the darkness is a beautiful place to be. It's something that I've learned, especially over the last 6 to 8 months, with great revelation and great connection. And it is from that return that we grow. And from my own personal experience, I have grown profoundly. I have learnt so much. I barely recognize myself at times for what I've experienced in the value in the darkness. Initially, deeply confronting and scary. Deeply, but once we surrender, as my beautiful mentor taught me, is to surrender to the mystery. And in that surrender, in that time though, in that space, we don't feel we can return from the darkness. It's so profound. Matthew, how are you, brother? It's so overwhelming. We suffer deeply and it hurts. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story. Can we please have a number 5 for Michelle? For Michelle Silva. Thank you, Michelle. Number 5 for Michelle is beautiful. I'll read that out. I've suffered with depression for over 10 years. I put on so much weight, felt lost, not knowing how I am. It can be so heartbreaking. However, I've now lost 18 kilos and starting to love myself again. Or now. That's beautiful, Michelle. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's an inspiration. Number 5 for Michelle. It's beautiful. Thank you. It's that vulnerability, that ability to be vulnerable with self, beautiful people, that, and it's been my own personal experience. I'm a huge advocate of vulnerability, especially vulnerability when we are sad, suffering, hurting, when we are disconnected and in pain. Especially for men as well. Most men in the Western world are not culturally adept and well practiced at being vulnerable and expressing one's own authentic truth. So as part of my mission on this earth is to assist individuals in being vulnerable and assisting them in recognizing the deep power in vulnerability, the deep authentic strength and resilience that comes from being vulnerable, the growth that is cultivated from practices of vulnerability. And you know, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Here it is. I get that everything happens for a reason and multiple reasons. I get the beauty found in every experience. I get the value in everything that we experience. And you know what? The greater the perceived problem, the greater the pain, the more profound the growth, the opportunity for growth and expansion. I get all that. And I don't just get it intellectually. I get it viscerally. I've experienced it multiple times. And I value it and I love it. But you know what? It doesn't stop. And nor should it need to stop the feelings. Nor should it need to stop the pain or the sadness, because that is part of our growth. That is part of what takes us to the next level of being. And eventually there are no levels to move up or across or to. But that's another story for another time, right? It's a simple message this evening is feel your stuff. That's beautiful, Rachel. Being able to talk about my pain has helped me now to realise who I really am and believe I'm beautiful and love me in the now. You see, the thing is, Rachel, that's beautiful. Number 6 for Rachel, please. It's really, again, profound sharing, people. Our pain does help us grow and learn. Our pain also helps us connect and resonate and be empathetic. And in that empathy, we are able to relate. And we are socialised relational beings, so relating is a natural part and a natural order of who we are. So when we're able to relate, we are literally living in our authentic states of being. How powerful is that? How profound is that? There's an artfulness to being. There's an artfulness to being with self. And there's a necessity for us to understand the contrast of reality, of this dualistic world that we live in, this physical dualistic world. Michelle asks, can you be too empathetic? To some degree, yes, you can. You can be so empathetic that you are paralysed by the deep feelings that you are feeling in others, and it paralyses you to take action. Therefore, you do not take action for yourself, nor do you take action for others. And that becomes a problem. Because action is an extension, or our physicality is an extension of our spirituality. And action assists us to manifest and become and grow and expand. And if we can't take action because we're so overwhelmed or so sad by being deeply empathetic or overly empathetic, so to speak. It's not overly empathetic, it's not being able to master our empathy. Not being able to hold our empathy within us. Because empathy without compassion is fruitless. And compassion without empathy is empty. Number 7, if you can resonate with that. So yes, you can be too empathetic. If you allow it to paralyse you and not take action and be so deeply overwhelmed, it becomes problematic. Pain is there to enlighten us. Fear is there to direct us. Fear and pain together evolve us. Number 8 in the comment box, if you can resonate with that. Fear and pain evolve us. And I'm not saying it's easy being in that, guys. I've been in such deep pain that the physical ending of my life has been a very viable option. And I like to consider myself a fairly resilient and tough individual. But sometimes the pain is so intense. But know that the pain does pass. Everything in life is impermanent. Every experience, everything we move through, it's impermanent. There's a beautifully flowing impermanence to life. And Shakti, the symbol of physical manifestation, is ever flowing and ever present. And in that flow, there's impermanence. There's movement. Being with that movement and accepting that movement is deeply enlightening. I want to say thank you so much for being here. I wish you many blessings on your journey, of course. If you believe in this message and you resonate with this message, feel free to share this message. Feel free to Share the video, of course, with your loved ones. A couple of things I'd like to mention, which I mentioned at the beginning. The workshop that I'm running, Wednesday the 6th here in Melbourne, Second Story Studios, I believe it's in Collingwood, not from Melbourne, from Perth. If you're around, please feel free to attend. I'll put the link up in the title here, above the video. And also on the 8th to the 11th of September, in a couple of weeks, I'm running, or less than a couple of weeks, next week, I'm running a retreat south of Perth in the beautiful Margaret River wine region, all about health and wellness, self-care, self-love, learning how to deal with relational pain, learning how to deal with self. And we go far deeper than we can, obviously, in a video. But if you're interested in that, I'll also put the link up there for that too. I want to wish you many blessings again on your journey. Once again, share please if you resonate with this video. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. I'll maybe Sunday. I do have a summit that I'm speaking at. That's why I'm here in Melbourne as well, speaking at a summit. Again, if you're in Melbourne, Sacred Sexuality Summit.org. And you can get your ticket there. It's going to be some fantastic speakers there as well. I'm very blessed to be part of that too. So amazing things happening, and amidst all that, there is sadness in certain parts. There is the sense and the feeling of loss and the reconciling of that. And amongst that pain, there is great beauty as well. But being with that pain is okay. It's allowed. It's allowed to simply transpire, albeit deeply sad. Take care. Have a beautiful evening wherever you are in the world. Beautiful morning. I wish you magnificence and magic on your day.